Tyler, it's super hard to run a gym with more than 300 members.
Tell me about it. I've got 2 of them going right now.
2 gyms with more than 300 members each.
That is correct. Yeah, we're 2 gyms at about 950 so members.
Whoa. Okay. Will you share some of your secrets with our listeners today?
I would absolutely love to. Looking forward to it.
Nice. This is Run a Profitable Gym. We're going to find out how Tyler and Christy Quinn of Alchemy 365 acquire, serve, and retain hundreds of members at 2 locations. This is a great story. I'm Mike Warkentin. Please hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. For a little bit of context, our most recent leaderboard, top 10 gyms for client count, ran from 314 to 698. This is monster numbers. Industry data says most group coaching gyms have about 100 to 150 clients. Good news, you can make a great living with 120 to 150 clients if your services are priced correctly. We won't get into that today. Instead, we're going big with Tyler. So Tyler's 2 Denver gyms made our top 10 leaderboard. He's going to tell you how he did it. Tyler, welcome from Mountain Time. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
I am fired up about this. I often talk to people who are running a smaller business model. You're going big. And so we're going to talk about it. You got to give us the lay of the land first. What's the 4-in-1? Like, what's the summary of your business model? Who are you selling to whom? What price, space, staff? Give me the rundown so people know what we're looking at here.
Yeah. Well, the business is called Alchemy 365. Group fitness. Everything is class-based. So we don't have any personal training or semi-private or small group stuff going at this time. Definitely high volume. So the majority of our classes tend to be in that 15 to 30 athlete range. So pretty crowded rooms. What are we selling? We're selling high intensity and functional training, but we're doing it, I think, in a way that for a lot of people feels a bit more approachable. And we're selling it to people who I think would say that fitness is just a part of their active lifestyle. They're not actually taking their fitness so seriously. It's not the end all be all of their physical activity, which is important because our customer is unique. And I think we've done a good job trying to focus on how we serve that specific customer. What do we say? 4,500 square feet. You asked about size of our spaces. So about 4,500 square feet. We have 2 closed off training classrooms. So our facilities sort of mimic a little bit of a yoga studio model where, there's a designated lobby space and you actually enter the classroom. It's not just necessarily open floor space. Okay. We've got about 45 staff members, four full-timers, and then just a bunch of part-time support staff members, a lot of coaches, and then some sales and marketing, and we've got some admin, and we've got some folks doing other things, but almost entirely on a part-time basis, except for those 4 FTEs. Yeah, and I think that gives you the general idea. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it. So you're looking at high intensity kind of stuff. I want to ask a couple questions about that. Like you said, 4,500 square feet, and yet you're packing in like 17 to 20 people. I had 6,000 and I was serving like 7, and I'd made some really bad decisions that cost me a lot of money with unused space. What kind of high intensity stuff are you doing there? Is it like barbell stuff? Is it different stuff that takes a little bit less space, or what are you doing?
Yeah, and Mike, cut me off if I go out of line here, but I think a little context probably helps answer that question, which is that I started Alchemy after owning and operating 4 CrossFit gyms in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So came from the CrossFit space. Yeah, there you go. Came from the CrossFit space, and when we were playing with the idea, we being my business partners and I, when we were playing with the idea of launching a new concept called Alchemy, we were pretty focused on optimizing space for one, and 2 was how do we differentiate a little bit from CrossFit? How do we make sure that if we start something new, people don't just see it as some sort of perversion of CrossFit. We wanted to sort of forge a little bit of our own space to play in, and so we actually created a piece of equipment called the Torpedo, which looks like a dumbbell with handles on the outside. And so what it allowed us to do was give people who had at that point really never been under a barbell an opportunity to put 2 hands on an implement and do things like a push press or a power clean. I put an asterisk on that for the Olympic weightlifters out there, but something that looked like a power clean, something that looked like a push press with a 2-handed implement. It also allowed us to swing it like a kettlebell and then hold center handles like a dumbbell. And so all of a sudden, a human being got a parking space inside of our class that was about the size of a yoga mat. And that completely changed the operating model for us, because instead of needing 4,500 square feet for 7 people, like you were talking about, our classrooms are 2,000 square feet. And yeah, we're getting 15, 20, 25, 30 people in a classroom.
Wow, what a fascinating way to solve a crazy problem. Because we realized before the show that we'd actually met each other back in, I think, 2012, when I was coming to cover a CrossFit Level 1 seminar at your gym. And I saw one of your new facilities. And like back in the day, the big plan at that point was to like go as big as you can and fill it with a monster amount of people. And like I kind of met in the middle and picked 6,000 square feet, but it was still way, way, way too much. And now we're looking at the other end of it, where there's a lot of gyms that are around now. They're operating in like 1,200, 1,500, 2,500, and their revenue per square foot just dwarfs what I did. And like their rent is smaller, and like they're doing all these amazing things. And so you found a way to not have to have that much space and serve large numbers of people. Because listeners, I'll tell you this, state of the industry data is coming out again this year. I can tell you without doubt the average group group class sizes, 7, maybe 7 people across the entire fitness industry. This is data from Wodify. This is data from Two Brain Dashboards, data from surveys, like thousands of gym owners. 7 people. That's the average. Most gyms are not able to get 15 people in there. So if you're building around a giant model, you better have a plan like Tyler's got, because it's not going to work in a lot of situations. I couldn't do it. Chris Cooper couldn't do it. Tyler found a way. So do you sell the Torpedo?
We don't anymore. And
Okay.
I'll tell you, the pandemic, not to pull that old sob story out,
but it's there.
we were wholesaling the Torpedo prior to 2020. So we were selling to gyms, hotels, apartment buildings that had little gyms inside. We were doing a pretty good little business there. We also had an online concept called Alchemy Anywhere, which was oriented around this one implement. And so we were selling direct to consumer as well. We've kind of put that on ice. So we still own the patents. We still have, the manufacturing rights, but we're not really totally sure what to do with it post pandemic. And just to comment, what I'll tell you is I wish I could go back and go even smaller, right? So back to the square footage conversation, because even, from 2015 to 2020, in the ramp up phase of Alchemy's growth, we were still falling into the trap of chasing larger and larger, more expensive spaces, more costly build outs. And now in retrospect, I look back and I go, boy, I still see areas where I could have shaved 500, maybe even 1,000 square feet out of each of our facilities and not had any impact on the customer experience. And so if anyone's listening, it's like, just constrain your thinking and restrict yourself down to the smallest footprint possible.
Yeah. And Chris, that echoes what Chris has said. If you can just start small and don't expand until you're bursting at the seams, and do it then from a position of strength, because every time you expand, you've got build out costs, relocation costs, paint costs, branding costs, all this other stuff, more heat, more everything. And like all of a sudden your profit margin goes down. You can build it back up, of course, but if you just make the wrong decisions, like I'm going to 12,000 feet from 2,000, which a lot of CrossFit gym owners did back in the day, you can end up with a horrible lease, a vacant facility, and all of a sudden no money in your bank account and you're gone. And that happens to too many gyms. So let's talk about this. So let's talk about client count, because that's what we're here to do. How has that changed over the years? Have you like started out with smaller numbers and built up? Did you go big right away, or how have you built to these impressive numbers?
Yeah, well, let's think here. So you're asking me to go back 10 years. So I'm trying to noodle on exactly how this evolved.
Because we tread the same path, and like you took a very different approach and you're at a different spot. I'm so curious about this.
Yeah. So when we opened, before we opened, when we were teeing up this idea of Alchemy, it was initially just going to be a class offering at our CrossFit gyms, right? It was just like, you hear people talk about try to solve basic problems for your customers. And we had some people who were leaving our CrossFit gyms and basically saying, look, I'm not interested in having my exercise be competitive. I'm not interested in some of the Olympic weightlifting or some of the more marginal gymnastics movements. And so we just thought maybe we can offer a class, a service inside of our CrossFit gyms that will take care of these people and these needs and keep them around longer. So we started just testing it, free classes, this had nothing to do with your membership. Anybody could come in, bring a friend, whatever. We just wanted to beta test what we were coming up with. And what we found, I'd be finishing up my 5:30 p.m. CrossFit class with 7 to 10 people in it. And then the door would start opening and closing. And by the time the 6:30 test class rolled around, there'd be like 50 or 60 people there.
Whoa.
And so that was when we knew, okay, well, there's something attractive to a lot of people. And so right off the jump, we started to build our business model around this idea of how can we get to $1 million units, right? We wanted to have each unit be $1 million. And so we had a membership goal that was going to drive that revenue objective at each business unit. And that's kind of the way we sort of triangulated around how many members do we want? How much space do we need? How do we service them? How, it just kind of all worked around that number. And that wasn't drawn out of a hat. We did have big aspirations about scaling the business up to be, a national player. And so we were meeting with private equity and a lot of private equity advice was that's the standard, that $1 million per business unit is the standard. And I'll tell you, I look back on that and I think that was bad advice for us to try to chase. It was the wrong thing for us to focus on. And I think it drove us to make a lot of really bad decisions during our initial growth years.
Wow. So I'm going to point out one thing that I think you did that was brilliant, and then I'm going to ask you a question about your mistakes.
Sure, yeah.
The thing that you said that was really, really cool was that you started with an idea of like, what do we want these gyms to do? And then you worked backwards from that, because I started with an idea like, I want to teach squats. And then I worked from that, and like, there was honor in what I did, but like, there wasn't a lot of business sense in that. And like, my results showed that. You went the other way. And this is what we recommend to gym owners now is like, what do you need to make? This is the number. How do we work back from this? How many clients do we need? At what price? What's the marketing plan? How do we fill it? How many leads do we need to close this many sales? And then the whole thing is just this daisy chain of business metrics that didn't exist back in the day. So you did a great thing. And here's what I want. Here's how I'm going to do it. Tell me about a couple of the mistakes. What happened there that didn't go according to plan that you said like, I should have maybe done it differently?
Well, I mean, I think that the chasing the revenue number led us down the path of all revenue being equal and any revenue is good revenue. And so I look back on the first 5 years of our business, and I look back at situations in which we were opening a smoothie bar at a couple of our locations and trying to take that on and manage it ourselves. And so I'll use a Highland Park location back in Minnesota. We opened the smoothie bar. Within 6 months, the membership starts to go down, but the alarm bells aren't going off because we're just offsetting the revenue with food and beverage. Right. And then all of a sudden, I'm noticing on Slack that in between classes, our general managers running down to the Trader Joe's to get more avocados for smoothies instead of, like being there in front of our customer. And sooner or later, the membership started to drop. But conversely, the moment we eventually sort of said, look, we're going to outsource, this is a who not how situation. Let's get somebody else to run the smoothie bar and figure that out for us. It just rebounded. That's an example of us chasing all revenue at all costs. We sold longboards with Alchemy branding on them. We were doing Alchemy retreats and getting people running marathons in Iceland and climbing Kilimanjaro, all through the Alchemy brand, because it was all this, how do we just generate revenue and build this lifestyle brand? And I think probably what we should have done was that, and this is pretty fundamental business advice, I think, which is like, figure out what you can be great at, do that thing, and don't start chasing all the shiny objects that are available to you just because you're having success in one area. So that's probably the biggest mistake. But I also would just say, you talked about how we were smart about backing into our goals. That came after a lot of hard-earned lessons. I mean, I don't think we did that in our CrossFit business. I wanted to teach squats just like you. I wanted to teach CrossFit. Yep. And so it took like a second try and rebooting a new business and thinking a little bit differently about it that allowed us to hopefully make better decisions than we had made the first go around.
Okay, so that's the history. That's very interesting. With these two facilities that you've got now, did you scale up to these member counts very quickly? Or was it like a chunk, or a slow build? Or how'd that go?
Yes, we started to feel like we had a pretty dialed launch plan that was going to allow us to get to a solid membership number pretty early. I think, we made lots of mistakes, but I think we did build a strong brand and we had good brand recognition, and that allowed us to kind of hit our membership goals within a reasonable time frame. So we felt like we wanted to be in the black on day one, and that we wanted to be at optimization 12 months, right? We had a 12-month
timelines
maturation period, right? We sort of felt like at the 12 months we need to be at this number. And I would say for the most part, our new studio launches, we were able to accomplish that. And so yeah, it was relative. I mean, I would call that relatively quick. Getting to 500 members at Low High, which was a new studio in a new market, not in our backyard. We did that, probably in 9 months, and we were sitting pretty solid at that location. They didn't all go that well, but that's kind of an example of the growth pace that we were trying to achieve.
Okay, that's great. And I'm going to ask you toward the end of the show about the sales and marketing, how you did that. But I want to talk about a couple of quick things first. Client count is awesome, but it's not awesome if the other numbers that back it up don't. Like if you have 1,000 clients and they all pay $1, you're not making any money, and you see the obvious example there. So two key metrics that related to client counts is average revenue per member and length of engagement. So like in some very large gyms, and often in these access facilities, these numbers are like $29 and it's 2 months or something like that. Their length of engagement is terrible. They want you to sign a contract at a cheap rate and they hope you don't come. That's just one of the business models that's out there, and it works for these large corporate facilities where it's equipment rental essentially. What are you aiming for in your gyms? Because you've got a very different model.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting question, and it's a timely one. And again, I want to provide a little context here, which is
please.
We were a growth company from 2015 to 2020. We were focused on becoming a nationally recognized brand. We wanted to have 100 corporate-owned studios around the country. That was our mission. In 2024 and late 2024, my wife and I ultimately made the decision to close down 7 of our 9 operating studios.
Whoa, okay.
And I don't know if you know that. So it was a matter of feeling like 4.5 years post-pandemic, the industry has changed so much, and I bet a lot of your listeners can know what I'm talking about. The industry changed, and even the customer changed.
Yep.
And we had a lot of residual modeling that just didn't reconcile with a post-pandemic world and the industry trends. And moreover, I think my wife and I we were 10 years older, and we just thought, do we want to be flying to all these different cities and opening cities? Is that really even what we want to do? So why is that relevant? We have made lots of changes over the last 12 months to downsize and refocus and think about our business differently. It's part of the reason that we ultimately swapped software providers. We went from MindBody to, I don't know if, Wodify is our new software provider, and they've been a huge partner in us sort of rebuilding our business smarter. It's part of the reason that we've plugged in with TwoBrain, because we're not even sure we remember how to run a 2-studio business in one market. Like, it's like, I couldn't remember what that was like. And so that's a lot of context, because you're asking these really great questions about arm and leg. And Alchemy today, right now, we're sitting at about 134 average revenue per member, length of engagement, roughly 16 months. What are we aiming for? As I was thinking about this conversation, I wrote down, like, there's no ceiling on what I want to achieve on those numbers, but all of a sudden we're thinking about those numbers as more critical, more front and center than we had been, right? Where historically it had been volume, it had been about number of units and just top line, and just show investor types about how robust our business is. And now we're trying to run something that is actually healthy and profitable and sustainable. And so now, working with Peter at TwoBrain, and we're able to start to tinker with our business in a way that's appropriate at our size now to drive those numbers up. So 134 and 16, that's the short answer. But I gave you a lot of context. Hopefully
but it's so
helps.
Needed. And what you're getting at there is business models. And that was, again, something that didn't exist really back in the day. There was maybe the business models, open a CrossFit gym with a lot of space where people show up. That was one not very good business model. There's also the giant bodybuilding thing that was kind of getting stale at the end, about that period, right? Where it's you just get all the Nautilus machines that you can, and you just funnel people in for $30 and hope they get huge. That existed. But Now we're talking about different business models. So you've evolved from like this one where you set a goal like national chain. That is huge thing that requires like huge CEO level skills, right? So you had to like completely different concerns. And you're talking about like a volume game. And alongside that, you're not coaching squats anymore. Like you said back in the early days, you're private equity meetings with investors and replicating brands and all this other stuff and leases and all these crazy things. That's a completely different skill set. Now you're pulling back a little bit. But what I want to point out to your listeners is Tyler's got a ton of members, but he also has strong length of engagement. It used to be length of engagement in the industry was like 8 months before, something pretty bad like that. And in some corporate facilities with like the equipment rental thing, length of engagement is maybe 3 months. They join in January, they're out by February kind of thing, maybe March if you're lucky. That's completely different. And the other thing you've got going on is an average revenue per member, 130 you said, I think it was, something around there?
Well, 134 right now, but got to do better.
But that's pretty good considering the number of clients you have, because they're like in a one-on-one, we'll see one-on-one, like I think our top ARMs are $500 plus at Two Brain Gyms. That often comes in personal training and small group facilities that are a very different business model again. So like what we're talking to your listeners is different business models. And as I said in the intro, if your business model is 120 to 150 people, your pricing and strategy and avatar are going to be completely different than if you're going for larger client counts. The point, figure out what your business model is. A Two Brain mentor is the perfect person to help you do that, because then you can start to get these numbers in line and say, this is what I need. This is how we're going to do it. And this is the next metric we're going to work on. And it's this whole cyclical process where you're not just saying, I need more. And that's how you said you went through a little bit of that, where it's like more for the sake of more and more for the sake of revenue and numbers and investors. That's a hard game to play. When you start getting targets in place, things are very interesting. So those are some really cool leg and arm numbers from a very big gym. And like, I'd suggest that those are very out of the ordinary and outstanding numbers for people with 900 clients. We'll go on a little bit. I want to ask you this, because like you've talked about huge numbers of gyms, huge numbers of clients. What are the challenges? Like, besides the complete level of overwhelm that I would feel instantly in your shoes, what are the challenges, and how does your mentor help you solve these problems now with two big gyms?
Yeah. So I think the biggest challenge is just keeping track of people, right? I mean, and that just probably seems obvious, right? So
how do you do it?
Well, yeah, and it's like there's a lot of human beings coming through the door, and if you're trying to be an environment where you know people's names and you understand their objectives and their goals, and you're trying to be a high touch point, that can be challenging. Having close to 1,000 members means you have to have a lot of classes on the schedule. Having lots of classes means lots of coaches. And so I would say that quality control is a challenge for us for sure. We talk about how the part-time group fitness coach is a bit of a transient population, right? Those people come and go. You're constantly trying to backfill with good coaches. And for us, it feels like, I mean, maybe not on our heels, but certainly not on our toes, where we're always a bit reactive and feeling like the quality of our coaching staff is never quite where we want it to be. We always want to drive that to be better. Churn. I mean, churn probably for all gyms is a challenging thing, but I think there's a certain natural churn that takes place for every location. And so if you just think about that equilibrium, right? If you're battling for roughly 5% churn, 5% of 1,000 it requires an awful lot of selling and a lot of conversion just to stay level. And so it feels like you're on a treadmill that's just a tiny bit too fast for you. Like you can keep up, but it's not comfortable. And you're always wondering, like, how do we increase efficiency in this machine? Your question was, how has our Two Brain mentor helped?
And you were with Peter Verstoven, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's run some big facilities, $1 million guy. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been so much fun. I mean, we have to be careful to stay on agenda, because we like just shooting shit and going back and forth with each other. I think one of the primary themes, given our size, has been, how do we take all these best practices that Two Brain has uncovered, developed over the years that they've been doing the work that they've been doing? How do we take those best practices and how do we apply them in a way that works for our business at our size? So something like a no sweat intro, like what does it look like when, based on our first time attendance and the number of folks we're trying to draw in just to offset that churn of 5% at 1,000. How do we do that in a way that actually still works inside of our business? And so a lot of our work has been, it's almost been like it's like a translation effort. How do we take the best practice and translate it into something that doesn't feel quite so manual and can be applied inside of our business?
You got to scale a little bit, right? Because you're one of the bigger gyms.
You got to scale it. You got to scale it a little bit.
Yep.
And here again, I mean, not to, look, the software transition for us was a huge deal. And I think that as good as the Two Brain mentorship has been for us, I think the other part of the equation has been, we joined up with Wodify, and the software, they've been able to bring some technology into our business to help us manage athlete check-ins, promotions, retail, the kiosk system, their workflows. So I'm taking Peter's solution, Two Brain solution, and I'm oftentimes going to Wodify as our total side-by-side tech partner and saying, look, here's this thing that I'm trying to do. I really think the value is there. How the hell am I supposed to do this based on our new visit volume or based on this? And what I've found is that the combination of the great tech along with best practices is sort of the breakthrough opportunity that we've been looking for.
And that's cool. And that's, one of the reasons I mentioned our State of the Industry report, working on it right now. It's going to come out in early November. Wodify partnered with us to give us all the data. And it's anonymized data. We don't see what gyms have, but we know that across Wodify gyms, this many people show up to classes. This many people, this is the demographics. And so we see all that data in a raw form, and we can put out this industry-leading report. We partner up with Wodify and Kilo to do that. And that's the idea, is finding, you've got these best practices. How do you scale it? How do you use software, to figure it out and make sure that it works for your business model? And for you, that's an incredible thing, because with 120 to 150 clients, you could literally manage client journey and goal review sessions and no sweat intros on a spreadsheet if you really wanted to. There are better ways to do it, but you could do that. 500, 900 clients, that's not going to work anymore. It gets pretty gnarly. So that's a really interesting way that you've got to find the technology to link the best practices up with what works at ground zero. So I love that one. Let's not delay on this one anymore, because you've mentioned a couple of times, and this is this is a big one. You've talked about clients and churn and replacement and so forth. So sales and marketing, I know now if you're talking, you got to replace 50 clients a month to break even at your current number, that's a huge pressure. How are you doing it? How are you finding, closing, and keeping so many clients?
Yeah, I mean, so everyone's heard the term "death by 1,000 paper cuts." I sort of feel like it's like success and culture and team building, et cetera, by 1,000 little data points, right? Like these little things that kind of combine and add up. So I think brand awareness is huge. I think we've done a lot of work to build our brand out inside of our markets so that people at least are aware of our existence.
Through advertising or what?
Yeah, advertising, but also a lot of organic stuff. So a lot of, we do an immense amount of offsites, pop-ups, freebies, special events. And I know that, Two Brain is they're a big proponent for this, right? Like this is a huge low cost way of building your brand inside of your market, is just put yourself outside of your gym, out into the world, and let people interact with you and interface. I think 70% of our first visitors are still coming in as referrals or buddy passes.
Are you serious? That's huge for a gym like yours. Wow.
So as much as important as paid ads is, and as important as advertising is, it's organic still drives the majority of our first-time visitors, and still drives the majority of our opportunities to sit down and sell our products to prospects.
Wow.
And then, when we do our paid advertising, and when we are speaking to our customers, one of the things that we really focus on, and there are 100 different terms for this. We use the term 3 uniques. It comes from an operating system called EOS. So our 3 uniques are just the trifecta of things about our business that we believe, in combination with each other, we do better than anybody else in the world. And so what we have done what we've been mindful of is clarifying what our 3 uniques are. And then repeating that storyline over and over and over again, and just doubling down on it. So when successful franchises pop up a block away from us, and that's happened so many times over the last 10 years. Barry's and Rumble and the Yard, and like they're a quarter mile away from us. It always causes this little blip of anxiety and a little bit of fear and a little bit of scarcity mindset inside of us. And then you remember there are plenty of people out now in Denver, but it used to be Minneapolis and Denver. There are plenty of people in our market who are looking for precisely what we do. And so now is not the time to try to emulate our competitors or try to pretend we're something we're not. Now is the time to double and triple down on exactly what we do best, why we do it, and who we do it for. And so from a sales and marketing standpoint, the tactics are one thing, going out and doing organic marketing in combination with some good, effective pays. But I think like what you're saying and the way you're presenting yourself to prospects is just as important, perhaps maybe even more important. And as a total aside, and I don't know if this matters, but I invite any listener who's out there and interested in this, open invite to come take some classes at Alchemy. If you ever find your way to Denver and you want to pop in and look me up and let's have a cup of coffee and talk about your three uniques in your particular facility, because they're not like anybody else's. They are yours and yours alone. And I'm writing some content right now about some of this that's going to be coming out called the Fitness Founder Series. It's just going to be an open source content on how to do some of this work, including defining and articulating your three uniques for your prospects. And so I don't know if Two Brain has a different language set or angle on that, but I think just knowing who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and why you do it is a very, very important part of your sales and marketing efforts. So that's a long-winded answer. Sorry about that.
But you nailed it there. And the Two Brain version essentially is like, what is your avatar? And every successful gym owner that I have from our leaderboard that comes in the show, I ask them, and I did it to you as well, what's the 411 in your business? Who are you serving? Who are you serving? What are you selling? And every successful gym owner can rattle that off in about 20 to 30 seconds. And it's very clear. I serve 25 to 37-year-old, predominantly females who want to accomplish this, and they're all busy professionals or any variation thereof. It's something like that. And that's the thing. When you know your market, you can then dial in. And like you said, like the worst time to reorganize your tent and pull up pegs is when there's a storm, right? That's the worst time. And so when a business goes beside you, like, oh, I got to start changing all my stuff, and everything falls down. It's the time to start hammering pegs in, right? That I'm good at this. This is the right location. This is the right thing. Hammer those pegs in deep. I love what you said there, and really double down on what you're good at. And that's something that a lot of gyms, they make the mistake of chasing too many things. You talked about a little bit earlier, doing all the things rather than doing three things really, really well. If you can find that focus, things will be better. Here's something, listeners, that I want to point out. Tyler's got like about 900,000 members, and he just said he's operating on organic and referrals more than paid advertising. That's a really fascinating thing. And if you think about it, the more members you have, the more referrals you should get, because every person in your gym should connect you to at least one more person, if not two or three, if you're really good at that referral process. We teach gym owners how to do 4 different funnels. Referrals are, I would say, the most important one, because it multiplies your very best clients for essentially free. I mean, there might be some little time costs and stuff, but just saying, hey, Tim, I know your buddy Derek was talking about just feeling out of shape on the football or the rec league, beer league, baseball field. We get him in here for a 2-on-1 and see if he wants to join. Sure. All of a sudden, you've got these two high-value people working out together. They sign up. It's kind of like fish in a barrel with a hot lead. Referrals are such an amazing thing. Do not miss the boat on referrals. And then I love the organic thing that you said. Like, it's the Anchorman thing where, like, you're probably kind of a big deal in Denver, right? People start to know Alchemy. They know, right? They know who you are. You're known in the community. They know the brand. They know the face. Getting out there and doing that stuff. No, that's good too.
Wife, not me.
And that could be that's probably the right plan, right? Like, you do the back end stuff or whatever. She's the face, the thing that works. But the idea is, like, they know who you guys are, and you're building a brand by saying the same thing over and over and over again in a strong way. And then, of course, you can tack on that paid advertising. Like I said, we recommend all these different things. You mentioned content as well, putting things out, telling people who you are. I want to ask you this one, because this is the last one I'm going to ask you. I'll let you get back to running your business. But length of engagement, you've got like 900,000 people. How are you keeping that number of 16 months so high and driving it up? Like, what are you doing specifically to keep these people? Because it's so easy. I started to lose people at 200. You've got 5 times that. How do you keep them?
It's a timely question because our last mentor call with Peter, that was the theme, is like, what are the actions that we're going to take to drive that number up even more? Yep. I think that what we've done is I wish I could give you a tactical answer. I think we've done a good job keeping our facilities clean, running our business professionally, classes, the studio's open when you get there. Classes start on time and they end on time.
Fundamentals.
The fundamentals go a really, really long way. I know this is going to sound crazy. We give a shit. We try really, really hard to demonstrate sincere, genuine care for the people that come through the door. That being said, there are some really great tactics that Peter and Two Brain have been introducing us to that we're kicking around right now. So like some athlete check-in, some goal setting, much better nurturing on the front end, right? So I'm really excited because I think if 16 months is good and we got there sort of just with the fundamentals, I'm really excited to see if alongside Peter's mentorship and if like, what's going to happen? Can we get it up to 18? Can we get it up to 24 months? I mean, what would that do for us? And so I know that that's probably not a great answer, but I also think that there are a lot of operators out there who have maybe taken their eye off of the fundamentals. And there are things that like that flickering light in the back corner of your gym that's been flickering for the last 12 months, like it's become completely invisible to you. It's the reason why somebody finally says, F this, I'm done. I pay my money and I can't even get these guys to restock the teepee. I mean, come on, And so I think that checking in on fundamentals probably goes a long way for a lot of operators. Overlay that with good tactics, which is something that I'm excited to be doing in the next 3, 6, and 9 months in our business.
Yeah. So that I hit you right there with what you're talking about with Peter, literally right now. Like you said, 16 months, you got to a great spot. The top True Brain gyms are 24 months. So that's a length of engagement that's life-changing, where our client has now built a 24-month, 2-year fitness habit, will probably keep training for the rest of their lives. You've changed the life. Your lifetime value for that client is monster at that point, because you're going to go, when you hit that, it's going to be 8 more months at $135 or whatever it is. So do the math on that, listeners, times 1,000 people. Like these are huge numbers at this point. And the two things that you mentioned, you've got to figure out, Tyler, obviously how to do it at scale. But listeners, if you're a smaller gym, and you almost certainly are, no sweat intros, start selling with that prescriptive model, meeting with your clients, get your client journey 90 days, and then the rest of it all laid out. Schedule goal review sessions every 3 to 6 months. So you're checking in and giving clients more. Everything there increases length of engagement, lifetime value, average revenue per member, all of it, and your sales and close rates will go up. So I'll tell you, that is the secret sauce for that number. Tyler has got the challenge of 1,000 people and major staffing things, because he's got so many people. He's got to figure out at scale. If you've got a smaller gym, you can do that, but master the fundamentals first. Build that 120 to 150 client gym, make it amazing. Then if you want, scale up like Tyler did from a position of strength. The world is your oyster. Don't go big too soon. That is the one thing I'll give you this. Tyler, this has been awesome. You've given us a ton to think about. I'm not going to keep you any longer from this, but thanks so much for showing us inside 2 incredible businesses. And I'm excited to see where you'll be in about a year. And if that length of engagement goes up, that'll be awesome.
I'll keep you informed. Thanks a lot for having me on.
It's been a pleasure. And I do want to connect with you again about this, because I think it's going to be a pretty cool story. That was Tyler Quinn. This is Run a Profitable Gym. I'm Mike Warkentin. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Please hit subscribe on your way out the door so you see more shows just like this.